Welcome to the flip side. Well, the Kirwan Commission is back in session talking about education in Maryland. And Ron, it sounds like this could be a key top talking point for this year's election. What say you?
Innovation and excellence, that's what it's all going to be about. Have you ever seen a year in education or a year in an election that education wasn't the foremost topic? We never come up with the answer, but boy, it's always a topic.
But this has been going on now for some time.
Yes.
So this is not something, I don't view this as election year politics, at least not from my perspective. Do you? I mean, I think
really,
what,
no.
I think
no,
what the legislature and the governor does with it might be election year politics. But I mean, this commission has existed for a while, Tyler. Do they have any hope of getting good stuff done?
Just looking at what they've come out with so far, I'm not a fan of it. And the first flaw with their plan that was released earlier this year, before you even get to reading any of the content of it, just look at the signatories on the paper, the people who were actually on the commission and contributed to coming up with the plan. There's a lot of politicians on there. There's a lot of hoity-toity administrative types. There's one individual classroom teacher from Baltimore County that actually spends time with students on there. And overall, this is sort of, in this plan, they have 5 recommendations. They look at expanding early childhood education and care. They look at recruiting and training high-quality teachers, which is extremely important. But then they talk about, probably the biggest flaw, I would say, is how they have this top-down institutional system where they're on this commission going to be coming up with syllabi for teachers to teach, and you talk about wanting to elevate teaching as a profession, but then you say, you know what, no, we're just going to tell you exactly what to teach, and it takes away that autonomy. Some of the best teachers that I've had, they went away from the syllabus, they sort of did their own thing, and that's how they get through to students.
That was in specialized instances, though. That wasn't part of the curriculum. That was part of the teacher that you had. Go ahead.
Yeah, that was sort of her curriculum, and I think a big part, this commission, it doesn't mention anything about school choice, it doesn't mention the role of the parent, it's just this big centralized, what's going to be a new government, super expensive bureaucracy, and I don't see this having any more success than previous top-down solutions for education.
So Tyler, you bring up 2 interesting points, and Henry, if I could get your opinion on at least one of those, and that is the role of the parents. Isn't it a fact that we need the parents to continue to be more engaged with their students to have the students' performance increase? Doesn't a lot of this fall back on the parents?
I think the large burden falls back onto the parents. But we also have to understand that in some households, we have single-parent households who the parents are out working, or we have dual-parent households who both parents are out there working just to try to make ends meet. So their time that they can spend with their kids to help educate them, and then the cost of childcare on top of that becomes a real burden for them. I know when we had younger children and my wife was working, what she was bringing home for a paycheck essentially was what we were paying in childcare. So it came to the point it didn't make sense for her to work. I'm not a big fan, like Tyler is, regarding having the government start to pick up and add another level of education on, have the pre-K education. I think that's a family role. Whether it's the extended family going into the grandparents or into your siblings who can help watch and you team to raise your kids. It's when it takes a village to raise a family, let it be your home village. Let it be the people who know you. I think that's the route that we should go, is trying to get, with my grandkids, my wife has helped raise them. My in-laws have helped raise them. When my mother was alive, she was involved in it. So it's a matter of, let's get the larger family unit involved to help.
But if you don't have a
educate.
family, a lot of people don't have family.
Well, that's one of the challenges. I think we have to address those that have that disadvantage, and sometimes it's by option, sometimes it's just because of the way it is. Having a single-parent household, or they're barely making money to get by, they may not have the resources available. So we have to find some solution that we don't neglect those children and have them ill prepared. Because if they're not ready to enter school in kindergarten, first grade, by the time they get to 5th grade, they will never recover that gap.
I agree. Tyler, when you spoke, you didn't say, and I know you was going down to 5 points, you're at-risk student, which is what Henry's really talking about. How's that at-risk student going to be dealt with?
Well,
All over the country.
Yeah.
This is a state issue, and it's got to be dealt with by the state and by each local jurisdiction, and then each school.
Well, obviously, I'm not too far down on the pre-K stuff from the state. In the plan, they have preschool education for 4-year-olds. They have it for 3-year-olds in low-income households. So that will help a lot of the at-risk children get ready for when they enter the K through 12
Do you
system.
think that's a good idea?
I think for some of the at-risk children it is, and they're having the families that can afford it, they will pay for that. So that's something I'm not necessarily opposed to, but again, my biggest problem is you have all these decisions on course content being made up at the top by people that aren't actually teachers, and that's how we got Common Core. It was this program that was created, a lot of higher up administrative types and politicians were for it, and then it puts teachers and sort of puts them into this box where they can only do so many things because they have to teach towards a test. I think if you want to really improve the educational outcomes that we're seeing, you've got to, yes, raise where teaching is in a profession, but then give the teachers the freedom to teach the students how they think is best. And
What
maybe
percentage, for both of you, what percentage of education are we talking about? The overwhelming majority of education today is a good education. All over the country, there's a lot of good education.
Look at the international rankings of our school systems versus other developed nations, and we're not scoring real well.
Well, why aren't we? Because parents don't
Because
want
only
their
thing
kids
we're-
in school.
because only
We
thing
would
we're doing
rather
is-
go to the
Ron,
beach.
We're throwing money at a problem that they're trying to have a solution. Okay, let me ask you a question. Who do you think is better to determine the needs in our community, let's say on roads, infrastructure? Do you think you as a past county commissioner or our current county commissioners have a better grasp of what this community needs? Or do you think
You
someone
don't
who's
really
saying-
want me to answer
or
the
you-
truth.
Okay, let's just use you and
Okay.
close off. Okay, do you think you have a better grasp of what this community needs to develop as infrastructure for the future, or do you think someone sitting inside the Capitol Beltway does?
No, but I would know who to go to get it done, to make that recommendation how to do it. We spend too much time determining other things
Okay.
to make leaders than what the people that should be making
You have
the
a teacher in a
decisions.
classroom that is managing anywhere from 30 to 40 students. No, for one class. And they rotate through and they have 6 cycles. They have 240, 250 students underneath their care for the
Okay.
week. Do you think that teacher is going to know those students better than the principal of the school, the superintendent of the school, or the superintendent of the state of education?
Sure.
Then let them teach to the student. They'll know where his strengths are, and they'll know where my strengths
What's
are.
your guidelines on what they teach?
Well, but here's the other issue, and I see where you're going, Ron, and I agree with the point you made, Tyler, and I think the point you're making as well. Education in Washington County, by way of our job opportunities, is going to be somewhat different. We are more of a suburban/rural community. There's probably not a whole lot of teaching about farming going on in Baltimore City, and there probably shouldn't be. I see a big problem with having this curriculum dictated by the state. I think that it eliminates the possibility for teachers to be innovative. I think it eliminates the possibility for teachers to be able to try new things that then they can share out as best practices. You know, when you have the basis of our economy is the fact that we have competition, and people are two or three or five or 100 people are trying to do the same thing, and who gets there best, the others learn from it. I think that we can do that same thing in the classroom.
Well, for both of you, the golden rule, those with the gold rule. The state pays a major portion of school construction. They pay a major portion of the educational budget. don't they have to have some of the say on how it's brought down, and then we refine what we want to do? This
But-
isn't like our Board of Education.
But
won't do
level
anything.
the challenge that we have is we spend so much time in the classroom now teaching to a test assessment and not teaching to the aptitude of the student.
Whose fault's that?
Whose fault's that?
Yeah.
That starts with DC and it filters down into the state.
Well,
The state
why
adopted
isn't
the
it being
test.
corrected? Year after year, we talk about the same issue.
I know we talk about the same issue because apparently I think the teachers would like to be in the classroom to teach. I
Well,
honestly do.
Yeah, like campaign finance reform, everybody talks about it, nobody does anything about it. I'm going to take the last word on that. Coming up next, the community college bill in the state of Maryland. Looks like it's going to happen. We'll talk about that in 3 minutes. Stay with us.